Hey there friends, and welcome to my beginner's guide and review for Shelter Manager. I'm Icon, and this video will be featuring the early access version 0.3.3, which has been kindly provided by Hamster Games to me to pre-browse it. I'm very grateful for that. The first half of the video will be about the gameplay, where we can see what the game has in store for us already. And the second half will be my personal review, where I will give some feedback and give you guys an idea where I think the game's at right now and where it will be headed. So let's get right started, shall we? So we get to manage our own bunker empire in Shelter Manager after the world has been horribly ended by either a nuclear war, a virus, or a meteor. Right now we only get to be nuked, but you see there are options in development. The nuclear war setting is so far the only one that we are playing, and it leads us to a world where there are a couple of surviving bunkers, and you are one of them, or three of them, deciding of your starting selection. We're going to start only with one bunker with a mediocre budget. These options are pretty self-explanatory, and in the next step we get to select what kind of equipment your bunker will have. Pretty neat customizations. I like that, but we'll stay at standard for the sake of simplicity of this video. In the next selection, we get to choose what kind of bunker we're going to play. Scientists, military workers are right now available. The scientists are not really well playable because the parts for drones are right now acting out a little bit weird. I'm pretty sure this will be fixed in the future. Right now, in my version, it didn't work. The military people get bonuses for weapons production, and the workers get a bonus for moral and work production. For this scenario, we're going to pick the military because I also think it's a perfect start for beginners because weapons production is really valuable and cool. Okay, so after that's been settled, we get into our bunker. Home sweet bunker. This is where everything happens. Shelter Manager is a turn-based game, so while your people here are moving, time does not pass until you press the end of turn button hidden behind my camera here. So let's get over the user interface real quick. Up here, we see our resources that we got. Food, metal, tools, workforce, science, workers, and military firepower. Over here, we see what our bunker is producing and needing per turn. So we see here our total amount of workers growing by 4 per turn. We see here our total population, that's 225 workers, plus those 50 pistol dudes. And we have a health depiction and moral and structural integrity of your bunker. As you see here, you have also a foresight how things develop. There's the food again. We see we consume 345 food per turn. And there's the science production and the workforce production per turn. Over here, we get to change things as we please. How food is going to be distributed exactly. So we can select only half a meal, 1.5 meal, double a meal. You get the idea. The direct impacts on that are pretty self-explanatory. You see here also when you click these things that you get a nice little readout of the tooltip if you prefer something less hovery. I'm really appreciating things like these. I really like sometimes a solid statistic. Now, there's the amount of work per day, influencing directly health and moral again, and how our workforce should be split into work points and science points, because work points are, well, I'm going to go over that in a minute. Work points are basically what you can use to produce stuff with in a nutshell. Now, that's what our bunker is doing, and down here are the remaining UI interface things that we're going to need. So down here, we could build rooms if we had room for that. Gonna go over that later. We can raise our armies down here. Let's lose a few words about that. Armies work like that. You transform workers into recruits, which will cost you moral workers, of course, and you see also the direct impact on your demographics by doing so. And it goes like this. Every recruit costs 0.2% moral, but there's a flat cost of 10% moral for every mobilization. So it's up to you to find a proper balance between how many soldiers you want to raise in one go and yeah, how many you can actually arm. Because every recruit will only provide military firepower if he or she is armed. And if you ain't got no weapons, your recruit is basically worse than a worker because they ain't doing nothing except for waiting for their weapons. So that's a pretty neat feature. I like that because it is pretty challenging to know how many weapons you will have now and in the future. Here goes the armament menu. It's pretty self-explanatory. You just select how many weapons you want to use, and that transforms your recruits directly into soldiers. The production menu and the trade menu are intertwined because they are really important towards each other. So we're going to go over them together. So here we can produce weapons and tools. As you see here, weapons can be produced either with a lot of work and only a few metals, or with not so much work and a lot of metals. I like that approach. And down here, we can also transform our workforce into tools. Tools are in this game basically your currency. When we head over to the trade menu, you see everything sold over here is traded via tools. So tools equals money. We can buy materials, weapons, and all manner of different things, which is pretty cool. I like that. It goes, I think, without saying. If you're ever starving, you can also sell your tools for food. Now, science menu is just what you would expect. It's a menu where you can invest your science into upgrades. For now, it's a linear path for rooms, development, production, and weapons. It's pretty self-explanatory. Every tree does exactly what you would expect from them, improving the respective stats. So what I really liked about it is you can select a goal and then you will directly invest the science, or if you have the science points available, you can just directly unlock the technologies. I'd really love if we could queue stuff in the future, but not yet. Anywho, the last point on the map here is the raid menu. This is where things get interesting. So we are sitting on this tile here, and we can raid our environment. Up here, hidden a little bit behind the camera, is the spot where we can define how much of a radius shall be raided. Watch that green circle go. So the further you go, the more far away your soldiers will go. This is necessary in the future because at the beginning you get a huge amount of resources in a very narrow radius, but at some point, you know, it's a post-apocalyptic world. People are not exactly reproducing stuff. So it empties at some point. We can decide how aggressive we go, which is basically only depicting how many soldiers we lose and how quickly we will defeat the opposition. If you have a lot of soldiers to fling at the enemy, you can do your stuff quicker with that. And down here, we get to select whether we're going to capture people or resources. And you can mix and match that however you want to with a varying distribution. So over here we see what we will loot. 800 food, or almost 900. Tools per turn, metal per turn. If you like what you see, just click the take raids button, and that's what's going to happen every turn. We see here raid results for all bunkers, because that's another thing about this game. If we go into the map view, that's the entire post-nuclear United States of America, and you can't just conquer everybody. Sadly, they will do the same to you. So you need to get your army together to defend yourself and to attack the other people if you want to have more bunkers under your control. Basically, every bunker you attack and conquer functions like your own like your own colony here, and you can put this you can turn this into a real empire. All right, so let's end the turn and see what happens. Now you see after a turn we gained these materials, and well, science stayed empty because the points were directly invested into the technology. Okay, base building. Let's cover this this stuff up next. So as you see here, there's a lot of things going on down there. And it's pretty simple. These are all building slots or room slots, which are doing different things for you. The gist of it is usually the upper line depicts the costs and the lower line the rewards. So we see here, we will have to invest 10% health to gain 1 construction slot. There's that. And Also, we can gain other bonuses. For example, here, if we open up that, we gain 50 slots more for people, and here we gain some carbon, lots of different things. Also, structural integrity bonuses. You get the idea, I guess. So, construction slots can be used for different rooms. This is where things get more interesting. So, we can build housing, food blocks, which are a sustainable source of food, so we don't need to raid anymore at some point. A psychologist, which yields a moral bonus. And down here goes the specialty buildings, which we have as a military bunker, so we can automate our weapon productions, which is really awesome. You know, you don't need to invest anything. Each of these rooms just spits out one weapon per turn, so you can basically equip a recruit per turn. Cool stuff. And last but not least, the repairmen, which repair your bunker. So this doesn't drop to 0%, because if the bunker condition goes to 0%, you lose the game. If your neighbors raid you, you lose, and you can't defend your bunker, you lose the game. If your people are all starving, you lose the game. If they are all dead, of course. So yeah, that's what it's all about so far. We can, of course, build all manner of different things and pay them with either workforce or tools. As you see here, the majority of rooms needs workforce. So it's up to you to balance your income here in a way that it works out for you. So from time to time, we will get attacked by our neighbors. So it is a wise choice to stock up on your army. And beyond that, it's a solid distribution management game. And that's all that we have for now. The really interesting part, which is happening across the game, is when you get attacked and you have to balance out your things, especially when you want to conquer other bunkers. This goes over the turn of several turns, over the course of several turns, where your own people are vulnerable, and you have to decide how many people should be workers and how many are soldiers. These things are already pretty much fun and give you the opportunity to get through it. So that sums up the beginner's guide portion of the game. Now we're entering the review. So for now, the game feels a bit bare bones on this level, because it's all fine and dandy, but I had really no issues whatsoever surviving the attacks of my environment, and things went pretty steamrolly, quit pretty quickly. So I just built up a little bit of food in my first attempts until I was positive on this department, built up a repairman station, and then I spammed out a couple of these weapon producers, where I totally skipped the pistols and shotguns and went right to the rifles, because the only difference in these weapons is their actual firepower at this point. So they just have different power levels. And from that point on, well, I built a second one of those rifle rooms, and then I was spitting out an army. It's all pretty cool, but the challenge rating is pretty slim right now. What I really think is that the game needs some solid campaigning and a little bit more of events, because right now a big problem that I had is there's literally nothing happening except for your enemies attacking you. But I don't want to be too judgmental here. This is a version 0.3. This is really not close to release, so I'm pretty sure that there will be things that can be done about that. Another thing that bugged me a bit was that there is so little time management aspects, so I would really like if chugging out these rooms would take time, if building these rooms would take not only the resources but also some actual amount of turns. So I have to manage a little bit more about that, because right now, well, sciences get developed immediately if you have the points. Productions get done immediately if you have the necessary resources. So overall, things happen a little bit too immediately for my taste. That's something where I feel like a gradual curve would be more appealing to me. What I really did like, though, about the game was balancing out my productions and starting out to raid the rest of the world. Seriously, conquering them places is fun, and equipping your armies and getting there. But so far, I'd really love if there would be more we could do with the overworld, like looting stuff. If we finally actually had an actual use for carbon, for example. That resource is more or less of a placeholder right now. So there are really a couple of things where the game needs still some working over, but I think a campaign mode and these different catastrophes, some solid goals, and this game's series fun. Right now, it suffers a lot from its aimless sandboxiness and not too many goals to strive for. And another thing that I really would love to see differently is how the tech tree works. Right now, you get no decisions. You can only go down that road. Only down that road. You have to take upgrades, which you actually often don't want. It was specifically with the weapons tree where I was only using rifles, and I would have been absolutely willing to just pay the higher prices and skip the other weapons which I wasn't using at all. So these are things where I would really love if I as a player would get to decide if I want to have that fertility bonus or that work bonus, if I want to have that science bonus or that material generation bonus. These things are a lot cooler if I can decide where my science has to be. Another thing that really which I would really love to see would be upgrades for rooms, not via science alone, but also the rooms themselves. Because right now I'm lacking a little bit of a long-term use for my resources. At some point, the bunker is fully stacked out, and the only thing I wanted was more people, more food, to turn them into more soldiers and conquer the post-apocalyptic USA. But that's about it for now. I'm really looking forward what the devs make out of this because the foundation is really solid. There are really cool things which I would love to play around, but without a challenge, without a proper challenge, all these functions are a little bit bare bones. But I did enjoy my time here with Shelter Manager already. The soundtrack is really awesome. I really enjoyed the music a ton. It's sadly not really audible right now because we're not moving across the game. The soundtracks are connected to the events. And I really, really think just more of that, and the game will be fun in its own way. I am afraid, though, that the finished product might be only interesting during the campaign for a lot of people. I'm not sure how to implement a really cool sandbox flair here. I know that the devs want to implement also other regions of the world, so we're not going to be stuck with the USA. There's also going to be Europe and Asia as far as I remember, so good stuff up ahead. The developers behind the game also have a history of solid strategy games, so I am trustful that there will be just more where that came from. Right now, I enjoyed my time, but it was done too quickly. Alright guys, that sums it up. I hope you enjoyed. Drop your comments down below if there are any questions or stuff you might want to say about this video. Feel free to. I'd be looking forward to that. Also, leave a thumbs up on that video to make it more visible. And of course, if you like that content, check out my channel. There's daily content like this popping up on the channel, and you just need to subscribe and turn on the notifications to stay tuned. Also, in the description box down below, you'll find my Twitch channel where I do daily streams and my Discord community where you can find tons of like-minded gamers. Well, maybe not tons, but I've never weighed them. You have to ask them yourself. Anywho, the last thing that I want to talk about, in the link you'll also find a ways and means to support this channel directly. If you would check them out, I'd be deeply grateful, but don't you worry. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good time. Bye-bye.